Well, for everyone who's been waiting on the blood work video, this is it. You know, I've had the blood work now results for about a week, and I know what I've seen, and I know what I know about blood work, which I'm not a doctor, but I can hear what doctors say. And one of the things I've realized about blood work when I would listen to doctors is it's all rather subjective depending on who's making the assessment. Every time you try to tack them down on an issue, you usually get a, well, no, that's not true because maybe this, but, and then when you try to go the other way, they hem and haw. So I'm not a huge believer in needing results from blood work because I'm more interested in how I feel. And I gotta tell you, I still feel the best I have ever felt in my life. I'm 50 years old. I feel much younger than that. And I just thought I would eat a nice steak with a little knife just to emphasize what gave me these blood work numbers. So I waited until today because I wanted to have somebody's input other than just my own. I've watched a few videos like by Dr. Barry and Dr. Saladino where they talk about blood work, but I'd much rather be able to share this information with them directly and get their assessment. But I was able to use some of their information to figure out what I could figure out about the blood work. And I even kind of used some of that information to see what my doctor felt about it in comparison. And for the most part, she was in agreement. As far as I can tell, she was completely in agreement actually. Let's take a look at the actual numbers, and I'll even share with you what she said specifically about my blood work. But first, let's just take a look at the numbers and talk about that. Let's start off with the comprehensive metabolic panel. These are my latest results. Sodium is 140, right in the middle of the normal range. Considering how much salt I eat, you'd think that might be higher, but I consume salt like crazy. Still have normal levels of sodium. Potassium, even though in the past month I haven't taken any extra electrolytes, I haven't eaten anything specifically that has added potassium, and I got a 4.4. right in the middle of their normal range, which is 3.3 to 5.3. My chloride levels, another attribute of salt and electrolyte, is 101 on a scale of normal between 98 and 107. At least this is their scale of normal. We'll talk a little more about scales of normal. And before I press on, I do want to point out that maybe I didn't get the blood work numbers that you might think I need, but I got what my insurance would cover, and I pushed my doctor to get some things that she wasn't even going to recommend, like my SED rate and a few other things. But for now, like I say, I'm going to give you the best I got. CO2 was 29 at the high end of the normal range, between 22 and 30. My urea nitrogen came up listed as high. Normal range is between 6 and 21. Mine was 26. Now, this would be cause for concern if it wasn't for the fact that I eat meat every day with every meal. Urea nitrogen is caused when your body, your liver specifically, is processing protein. One of the things I learned from Dr. Barry is that it's not the only marker you need to look at. When you're looking at urea nitrogen, the concern is are your kidneys able to handle processing all of this byproduct of protein? Because people say all the time, if you eat too much protein, it's going to kill your kidneys. Is that true? From what I've researched, not true. There are a couple other numbers that you can also look at to get the scientific answer on how your kidney is doing. Creatinine and your GFR. Now, creatinine is a very sensitive number. If you're even a small percentage above on creatinine, then you've got liver damage. Your GFR is your general number for how doctors determine whether or not your kidney function is proper. Now, when I first started this diet, my numbers were in the 60s, and they've gone up to the 70s, even the 80s, and back down to the 70s before. This time, my creatinine was 0.98, which is slightly on the high side of normal range, but still well within normal. And if we scroll down here, eGFR was 94. Going back to a year before I started this diet until now, and my kidney function is showing the best it has shown in the entire time that I even had a clue what eGFR was about. Now, my bun creatinine ratio is also listed as high, but that's simply because my urea nitrogen level was high. BUN stands for blood urea nitrogen, So the ratio is going to be high regardless of what my creatinine level is. Glucose was 92. Considering I don't eat any sugar at all, that ought to say something about how your body handles producing glucose, even though all you're eating is protein and fat. My calcium was a little bit left to center on the normal range at 8.9, between a normal range of 8.4 and 10.2. Total protein normal range is 6.4 to 8.3. Mine was 6.8, so again, still in the normal range. And albumin was 4.6 on a normal range scale of 3.5 to 5.2. Nothing to complain about there. Calculated total globulin was 2.2. Now it says here the normal range was not established. I don't know what that means. We can look at the trends and see that I've gone down a little bit, but again, there's no normal range to really look at there, and my doctor didn't mention anything about that. The albumin globulin ratio, again, that doesn't have a normal range established, but we can look at my history on that and see that it's fluctuating between 1 up to a little over 2. So you do whatever you want with that knowledge. All I know is the doctor had no complaints. This is one that I'd had some issues with in the past, bilirubin. And I find it interesting that the normal range now shows the high side of normal is 1. Because when I talked to my primary care doctor back when I lived in Georgia, he said 1.6 was within the normal range. Now, my gastroenterologist said they were more concerned when it was above 1.4. So to see that the normal range is now 0.0 to 1.0, seems a little odd to me, because 1.2 was considered excellent when I started eating this way, and now it says I'm on the high side. My doctor didn't have any comment about that being negative because she knew it was lower than what it had been, and I don't have any liver issues. So if we take a look at the trends here, you can see I was up to 1.6 on the total bilirubin, and before that I was down below 1 the last time they tried. You can also see where the normal range changed just in the time that I took the test with this particular doctor. Kind of doesn't make sense that something was normal 6 months ago is not normal now. I'll let you decide why they like to change these normal range numbers. Could it have anything to do with pushing more drugs? Alkaline phosphatase, AST, ALT, all in the normal range. Anion gap, no idea what that is. My value is 10. And that's what it was last time. Doctor seems to like it, so no complaints. And once again, my EGFR, I'm just thrilled about having a 94 rating, because my previous primary care doctor had told me back when it was in the 60s, it was a small cause for concern, but just getting up into the 70s, he was extremely happy. So being up in the 90s is great. Moving on to my lipid panel. This is one that viewers often ask about specifically because they're so concerned about what the cholesterol numbers say, because they've heard that LDL is bad cholesterol and HDL is good cholesterol, and really that's not even the case. But let's just say if my LDL was high, I wouldn't be concerned about that either, because it has more to do with the density of the LDL. And these tests don't look at density, so I'm not too worried about it. Total cholesterol was 193. Compared to last time, my cholesterol was 190, so it's maintaining a pretty much average number there. Triglycerides, on the other hand, were 29. Now, it says here that that's low, but that's because the normal range is 55 to 149. There really is no low triglycerides. I'm on the low side of something that usually leads to heart failure. And my HDL, which shows here is high, at 96, again, that's only because the normal range is 23 to 92. Even my doctor confirmed that there is no high on HDL, there is no low on triglycerides, and I've verified it online that the combination of high HDL and low triglycerides pretty much means you're going to live forever. I mentioned that to the doctor today, and she kind of confirmed that that's a good sign. My LDL calculated was 91, which is on the low side of their normal range. This is another one where the normal range changed. If we look at the trends here, you can see I was at 110 before. It does show when you look at it that 110 was high last time. But if you go by the normal range on this chart, 110 is not high. That's one of the problems I have with all these blood work numbers. is they shouldn't be fluctuating like this if it's a science. I mean, it seems like they're making it up as they go. And finally, my non-HDL cholesterol, which I don't even remember seeing that before, but whatever. It's here, and it's within the normal range. Anything between 0 and less than 160 milligrams per deciliter is considered normal, and mine was 97. Lower than the previous time, according to this chart here. It was 127 before, but still within the normal range. Moving on to sedimentation rate. Sedimentation rate is one of those ones that I had to get her to put in for me because I was asking about inflammation markers. I wanted to be able to point out whether or not I was having high inflammation related issues. Mostly because my body still hurts from all the hell I put it through working at UPS. However, my sed rate was on the low end of normal at a rating of 1 mm/HR. I don't know what mm/HR means, but I know that that shows that my inflammation is extremely low, and my doctor confirmed that today as well. The scale of normal is between 1 and 20, and mine was 1. My CRP, or what they call high sensitivity CRP, was within the normal range at 1.59. That's C-reactive protein, by the way, which is another inflammation marker. So once again, on the low side between 0.2 and 5.0, I'm at 1.59. Now this one's called vitamin D25 hydroxy. The normal range is between 20 and 120 nanograms per milliliter. Mine came in at 37.16. I've been getting a lot more sun, and I hadn't been using my vitamin D supplement for about a month before this test. So I'm still coming in the normal range now, and I think that has a lot to do with the fact that I'm getting a lot more vitamin D from sunlight through my skin. Hemoglobin A1C is another one that she wouldn't have done a test for had I not asked her to. And the range on that is 4 to 6. I came in at a 4.9. And my estimated average glucose value was 93.93, which is below it's in the normal range, below 126 milligrams per deciliter. That unfortunately is the only time I've had that checked, but I've had a lot of people ask about it, so I wanted to be sure to include it. Glad to know it's within the normal range on both cases. Thyroid cascading reflex, or TSH, was 4.061 on a scale of 0.4 to 5.0. This basically talks about your thyroid function, and mine is in the normal range on the high side. That's excellent. First time I've ever had that tested. And I wish I had tested it before so I could see how the iodine supplementation really affected that. But I can tell you that my thyroid's doing great. So I don't have any problems with that, and my doctor doesn't either. So I'm happy. This is one that I talked about in a whole separate video where I talked about testosterone. You can see here that I'm 588, right in the middle of the normal scale, and I was down in the 300s before because my testosterone was low back in 2018 when I was put on TRT for, let's just say, some dysfunction, and I was on that for nearly 4 years, and my doctor told me if I ever quit taking it, my numbers are going to drop through the floor, even worse than they were before. So when my current doctor checked my blood work earlier this year after I had been off of TRT for about 6 months, she was surprised to see that my numbers were still in the high 300s, actually higher than they were when I started on TRT. And now here, almost a year later, after having no TRT well over a year, my numbers are back in the normal range, which is really exciting because both of my doctors seem to be surprised by that. I did put in the previous video that they were, what did I say, flabbergasted? No, I said, anyway, whatever I said, the point is they implied to me that my numbers would never go back to normal because of my age. They just don't see that happen. But my doctor today confirmed that she was happy to see they were in the normal range, and she kind of acted like she expected it, but She sure didn't act that way last time when she was surprised that my numbers were as well as they were after quitting TRT. Either way, I'm very thankful. Let me go back and find that previous testosterone result real quick here, just to show you for comparison. This was back in July of 22. You can see they were down to 395, which is on the low end of the same scale. And on the flip side of testosterone, we got the estradiol. It's a test for estrogen, which males and females both have estrogen and testosterone. We just need different levels for our bodies to function right. My estradiol value was in the normal range, which is below 47. My value was 22. Doctor was happy with that. And finally, my CBC auto differential. My white blood cell count was on the low side of the normal range, between 4 and 10 at 4.5. My red blood cell count was on the low end of the normal range at 4.65. Normal range is 4.5 to 5.9. My hemoglobin was right in the middle of the normal range, which is 13.0 to 16.5. I had a 14.4 value. My hematocrit, the normal range is between 39 and 49. My value was 42.1. MCV was in the normal range at 90.5. MCH in the normal range at 31.0. MCHC was in the normal range at 34.3. RDW was at 13.9. That's actually increased a little bit each time. I have no idea what that checks for though. This is where I would like to have a chance to talk to Dr. Barry about some of these things. Platelet count, MPV, neutrophils percentage, lymphs percentage, monocytes percentage, EOS percentage, BASOS or BASOS, I have no idea what that is. Neutrophils absolute, lymphocytes absolute, monocytes absolute, eosinophils absolute, all within the normal range. My basophil absolute was slightly on the high side. The normal range is 0.02 to 0.09. Mine was 0.1, so just slightly on the high side. Again, I don't know what that's about. It's been higher before, and previously it was within the normal range, so who can figure out what these numbers mean when they say things like that? Absolute NRBC count was 0.01, no established normal value. Previously it was 0, and now it's 0.01. Doesn't seem like there's a whole lot to measure there. And finally, my NRBC was, again, it's a normal value not established. My value was 0.1. And that looks like the same thing as the previous one. So all in all, that's saying basically my blood looks just fine. And here's a little bit of the audio from my visit with my doctor where we talked about some of these things.
Yeah, your GFR actually looks better. So, and then let me see, your CBC, that was normal. So that looks fine. Cholesterol, we're looking...
Unusual numbers, I bet.
Yeah, your triglycerides are really, really low. I think that's because of your diet. Your good cholesterol is super high, so that seems to be working in your favor. And your bad cholesterol is under 100, which is great. So that looks even better. That's why the total is higher than before, because your good cholesterol has gone up.
Yeah.
And then your SAD rate was low, so that's all normal. That's normal. CRP, vitamin D was good. And the thyroid was normal. The testosterone level was 588, so midway.
How did you feel about that, though? I remember last time you were surprised it was in the 300s after I'd been on testosterone for several years.
Yeah, but, it's fine.
Well, I felt pretty good about it.
Your labs overall look good. I'm guessing the blood pressure today is just because he got you in right away and checked it, so...
Well, partly that, but he says it's because my arms are so vascular. Last time he was here, you were saying that?
Oh, okay. I don't know about that.
So he said he gets that a lot, but when he checked it himself the last time, it came out much lower.
Lower, yeah. I'll have him recheck it, but it looks fine. Do you keep an eye on it at home?
Yes, it's usually in the 130s.
Okay.
About 138 is about as high as I've seen.
Yeah, so overall your blood work looks good.
Doctors mentioned that they don't see high HDL and low triglycerides very often.
Not in males. It's actually not usual.
I was happy about it.
Yeah.
I saw some reports that said that this means you're going to live forever.
Yeah, it looks really
I'm sure I won't live forever, but that was a pretty good,
yeah.
what do you call that, anecdote, I guess.
It's important, that's for sure. It protects the coronaries, the arteries, so we'll take it. It means you don't need any medications.
I like that.
Yeah, so we're good.
That's all I wanted to know.
There you go.
So that's about the best I can do when it comes to talking about blood work, because as I've told you guys a few times, I'm not a huge believer in what these numbers mean. They seem to be very subjective. The normal ranges keep changing. Doctors don't agree on what they mean, but hey, if my primary care doctor is that confident with the way my blood work numbers came out, there's no reason that I should have a problem with that. But even if she'd had a problem with any of my numbers, I really feel like from all the research I've done, but even more importantly, how I feel and how much better my life is since going to this way of eating, I'm not worried about what those numbers say. Those numbers don't mean a hill of beans to me, but I know they mean a big hill of beans to a lot of folks out there in the YouTuberverse. So that's why I made this video, just for you. So you could have something to munch on and complain about, and whatever else you want to say about my blood work numbers, I'm telling you, I am doing better than ever, and my doctor agrees. Maybe someday I'll be able to get Dr. Barry to come and talk to me about what he thinks, and we can go over some of my history too. Anyway, that's all I've got for this one, guys. I'll see you next time.
If we pay extra, could we maybe get some grease or fat?